Time We Have Now by HiddenBrony.
It's supposed to be super tough, but I'm not worried about it. I am the greatest flyer in all of Equestria, after all.
The high-flying boast could only come to the one and only Rainbow Dash. Sky Blue was signature rainbow mane. The speecher was in the middle of her self-congratulatory speech in front of her assembled friends.
This time next year, you're looking at a certified Wonderbolt.
Despite the calm and collected manner she was attempting to portray herself as, Dash couldn't help but give off a high-pitched squeal of delight as her friends surrounded her with praise and wishes of good luck.
Congratulations, Rainbow.
Twilight Sparkle chimed, an excited grin on her face. The lavender pony hugged her friend briefly as she spoke to the assembled group.
Every pony should be able to follow their dreams like this.
Oh, this is so exciting!
Pinkie Pie cheered. The pink mare spun around on one hoof with her forelegs extended out like wings.
Rainbow Dash, you're gonna be like zoom and then wham and whoosh, zoosh!
Dipping and dugging around, Pinkie kept on an unreal sense of balance before finally hitting the ground with all four hoofs, as Applejack brought the pony back to earth.
Oh there, Missy. Let's keep the flying to the ponies with wings.
She smiled, letting Pinkie go as the hyperactive mare nodded her head at Rainbow Dash.
Well, that's quite the news, RD. I know if any pony's up for the challenge, it's you.
Dash beamed as Applejack gave her a blessing, a slight blush creeping up on her face at the wave of compliments from the friends who had a history of keeping her grounded.
Well, I, for one, am simply jealous that how Rainbow Dash gets to spend 6 months in Canterlot.
Rarity's eyes fluttered at the prospect, a small smile on her face.
To be surrounded by such like-minded ponies.
She trailed, before chuckling.
Of course, after your little stunt at the Best Flyers competition, I think the whole training thing is a bit redundant.
Twilight smiled as she shook her head, her horn glowing as she approached one of the many books that lined the shelves at her library.
Actually, Rarity.
She began, a book flying out towards her friend, the insignia of the Wonderbolts emblazoned upon it.
The Wonderbolts are more than just stunt ponies. They're also some of Equestria's most accomplished service ponies. You remember when they came to your aid during Spike's.
Twilight trailed off, words lost on her to explain the terrifying day when Spike's dragon instincts kicked in.
I think we can call it a big episode.
A voice called from the back. Spike sat away from the girl, a gemstone in one hand and a quill in the other, as he tapped the sapphire against his chin. He seemed lost in thought, but soon shuddered as he relived the day in his head.
I'm not gonna let that happen again. Big dragons are really dumb.
Giggling at Spike's candor, Twilight referred back to Rarity.
The Wonderbolts require a lot of teamwork and have to learn how to deal with unexpected threats across Equestria. They're a first response team.
Twilight's boast. A smirk played on her face as Dash took every opponent's attention.
Yeah, and I've spent the last few years becoming an expert on dragons.
Rainbow Dash cut in, a smirk plastered on her face. Rarity smiled, her eyes averting from the sky blue pegasus as she closed them.
So, when are you leaving, Dash?
A demure voice broke the silence, Fluttershy looking interested.
I want to spend as much time as possible with you and all the girls before you head off. It's gonna be a while before we see you again.
Twilight nodded slowly, her expression slowly changing.
That's right, Rainbow. You won't be able to come back to Ponyville during your training.
Rainbow Dash tapped her chin, shrugging nonchalantly.
Don't worry about it, Twine. I've gotten a lot better at writing letters recently.
Rainbow joked, a knowing smile passed between all the ponies present. Turning towards Fluttershy, Dash waved a hoof through the air.
Well, there isn't a whole lot of winter left, and training starts in the middle of spring, so I think I've got maybe 2 months to hang with you girls.
She said, her wings outstretched.
I should be back before you know it, and back before the next running of the leaves.
Applejack chuckled, throwing a hoof over her friend's back, as she butted her head against Dash softly.
Maybe this year you'll actually run. Or do we need to get that rope tied around your waist again?
Dash visibly winced, nervously laughing the remark off. Applejack, pleased with herself, let the mare go as she returned alongside Fluttershy, a victorious smile on her face as the butter-yellow pegasus giggled softly.
6 months, and then you'll be back, right?
Rarity asked, her voice subdued. Dash looked over. Her self-confident smirk met with Rarity's brilliant cerulean eyes. But instead of their usual sparkle, her eyes seemed fearful, hurt even. Rainbow's smile faded as it was replaced instead with a bemused stare.
Right, Rainbow Dash?
Well, I.
Dash began, her eyes starting back and forth as she searched for an answer.
Well, of course she's coming back.
Applejack hooted. Fluttershy raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything further, her eyes watching her white-coated friend.
You can't keep a pony like Dash away from her home for much longer than that.
Twilight's eyes left Rarity as Applejack rebutted Rarity's question. Walking forward, Twilight looked over all her friends before slowly speaking.
Rarity, I wasn't aware you'd miss Rainbow Dash so much if she left.
Rarity's eyes bulged slightly. As she was met with the stares of all her friends, she quickly cleared her throat.
Well, yes. Some pony has to miss our fair Rainbow Dash and await her gallant return into Ponyville.
Her eyes drifted from the group, instead finding interested in the clouds outside.
I cherish all of my friends equally. I am sad to see them go.
She defended, before adding,
Even if it's for a short while.
Rainbow Dash's confused expression had been replaced with a softer, more bashful smile, as she looked at her unicorn friend.
Thanks, Rarity. It means a lot to me that you'd miss me enough that you'd be upset.
Locking eyes with the unicorn, the two regarding each other from across the room.
Oh, Dad!
Pinkie said, cutting the mood. The rest of the friends had glanced over to the pink potty pony, who wore a look of mild contempt.
Well, of course we'll be sad when you're gone, Dashy.
Hopping over to a partner in pranks, Rainbow found herself subjected to another one-hooved hug, as Pinkie nuzzled the pegasus roughly.
But you're still here, so we're gonna make the best of the time as we've got.
Rarity shut up, her eyes once again back to the bedazzling Norm.
You're right, Pinkie. Now is not the time to focus on the negative.
Pointing a dramatic hoof towards the pegasus, Rarity shot a confident smile as she slammed her hoof down for effect.
Rainbow Dash, as Celestia as my witness, you shall have the best 2 months you have ever had in Ponyville ever.
Poignant delivery aside, her speech was met with a stunned silence from most every pony. Applejack's amused expression was all that partnered up with Rarity's declaration, the farm pony shrugging.
Well, so far as any pony else is concerned, I'm gonna treat you just like always, Artie. No use changing things up when you're bound to come back.
Fluttershy looked at her feet.
Well, I guess I could spend more time watching you train over Sweet Apple Acres more often than I do. And don't worry about Tank. I'll make sure he's taken care of until you get back. Thanks, Fluttershy. Save me the trouble of asking you myself.
Rainbow chuckled, her eyes continually glancing at the white unicorn, as she busied herself talking to Pinkie Pie about party plans. As Twilight joined the two, Rainbow lowered her voice as she pointed over at them.
Say, you guys notice anything, I don't know, weird about Rarity today?
Fluttershy stared blankly at the group of ponies before shaking her mane.
Nothing too out of the ordinary, no. She's always been kind of dramatic.
Fluttershy giggled a little, but by the expression on Dash's face, she stopped and cocked her head to the side.
Why? Do you think something's wrong?
Her voice was already filled with concern. Dash quickly shook her head.
No, it's probably nothing.
Dash admitted.
I just thought... yeah, it's nothing.
Covering up her unsureness with a smirk, Dash dropped the subject, her eyes flowing towards the white unicorn, who continued to help Pinkie Pie plan a party like she'd never seen.
She's up to something. I know it.
Dash muttered, her hoof on a glass of punch. Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie sat opposite her as they sat together for lunch.
Are you sure she isn't trying anything weird for that party she keeps trying to throw?
Pinkie Pie shook her head. Her lips puckered in confusion.
Nuh-uh, I don't think so. It's been really nice that she's been so helpful with planning parties. I never knew she was such a pony at heart. She's been really excited too,
She admitted, her grin broadening as she continued.
I think she really wants to make you feel special, Dash.
I guess.
Dash drummed her other hoof on the table as she looked over to Fluttershy.
And she hasn't said anything to you at the spa?
Fluttershy shook her head softly, taking up her juice box she had brought from home to save money.
No, nothing really out of the ordinary.
She said. There was a moment's thought before her eyes brightened.
Oh, she did say something new last time. She did?
Dash jumped up, her tail whipping about as she put her hooves on the table and leaned forward.
What did she say? She said she wasn't going to let a chance like this slip by her again.
Fluttershy mumbled, her eyes staring at the smooth yellow tail beneath her hooves.
She said that on and off for a year now, but Rarity never tells me what it means. I worry about her sometimes.
Looking up, Fluttershy saw that she only served to confuse her friends more, so she shook her head with a frown.
Oh, I'm sorry. That really didn't help, did it?
Dash leaned back, her wings flaring to stop her momentum.
What chance? I don't remember any really big pranks or something.
Tapping her hoof on the table, her mind wandering. What could Rarity possibly be doing that she's going to such lengths for? Pinkie Pie shook her head, prying Dash aside with a snout as she smiled.
Silly filly, why do you gotta think it's bad?
She reiterated. Dash had to admit, Rarity wasn't exactly known for being vindictive. In fact, she was quite the opposite, which only served to confuse Dash further.
So, okay.
So,
Why would she want to be all super duper friend now? I know I'm leaving, but I mean, I'm gonna be back a lot of the time. What could she possibly want to do with this?
She waved her hooves around in a tight circle around each other, her eyes darting over to her fellow Pegasus.
chance?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Slowly?
Twilight breathed, putting a hoof on her forehead. Rarity stood opposite her, her eyes flying all over the library looking for Spike. Spinning about on her hooves, the ivory mare flew both hooves onto Twilight and looked her right in the eyes.
I love Rainbow Dash.
She seethed, throwing her hooves off of Twilight as she stomped about the library.
I don't even know why, but I can't even begin to doubt my feelings for her, Twilight.
Twilight was shaking her head repeatedly as Rarity went on, her head trying to wrap itself around it.
I just keep reliving every single moment I've spent around her. That wonderful mane, that chiseled body, oh how I yearn to touch.
Okay!
Twilight shouted, her horns sparking as she reflexively shot a pillow across the room and into Rarity's open mouth. Opening her eyes, Twilight realized her reaction was a bit off, but swallowed her mistake and acted as it was all part of her plan.
I don't need to know about any yearning. No yearning.
Rarity nodded dumbly as she spat the pillow out of her mouth, kicking it away with a limp hoof like some used rag.
I don't even know where to begin with this, Rarity.
I know, darling, but you must realize I was going to explode with this secret if I hadn't told some pony.
Rarity threw a forelimb over her head in some dramatic fashion, which her friend took in stride as she walked over to one of her bookshelves.
I certainly hope that I haven't offended you in some way, Twilight. I know you've mentioned your own preferences before.
My preference is that I have no preference. Any pony worthwhile is fine by me. You know that.
Twilight said with a smile, looking back at her friend as her magic pulled a book off the shelf.
You don't need to worry about that. Lots of ponies been opening up their dating pool these days. It's hardly the social issue it used to be back in Granny Smith's time.
Looking at the book that levitated near her head, Twilight congratulated herself for pulling it off the shelf without looking.
Ah, here's the book I'm looking for. The Egghead's Guide to Matchmaking. Philly Fuller's edition.
Rarity trotted over, peering at the title herself.
I cannot believe there's an actual book, Twilight.
Twilight shrugged and opened the book, sliding on the table. She figured she'd give it a look later, and wheel about on her friend.
So,
So-
how long has this been going on? You never struck me as a pony who enjoys, other mares.
Twilight flicked her hoof in one direction, then a couple of times in the other as to indicate Rarity's other direction.
If you ask me,
If you...
you don't seem all that happy about it.
I'm not.
Rarity raised her voice, much to Twilight's surprise.
Can you imagine me in a relationship with Rainbow Dash? We have nothing in common, and she's so brash. The very definition of uncouth.
Rarity worked herself into a tizzy as she paced around the library, her steps quick and deliberate.
Don't even get me started on her mane. Such a beautiful array of colours, and she hardly ever washes it. I know sleeping on clouds has its benefits, but so does shampoo and conditioner.
As Rarity continued her trade against Rainbow Dash's lack of personal hygiene, Twilight felt she was getting further from the answer she sought.
Rarity.
I got my hooves full on it once, Twilight.
Rarity ignored, looking at her hoof as if Rainbow's mane was resting in it.
She allowed me to wash it, just that one time when I got to focus on it, just me and her. It was wonderful.
Rarity.
Have you ever felt her mane before, Twilight? It's so clean. It's like the smoothest silk. I can hardly keep my hooves off it. But alas, she has to go. Oh, Rainbow Dash, if I only knew how I felt.
Rarity.
Rarity stopped, her pupils shrinking at Twilight's annoyed expression.
Oh, yes, Twilight?
How in Equestria have you kept this a secret?
Twilight exasperated, groaning loudly as she folded her hoofs, sitting down on her haunches. Rarity sent her a bashful smile that the mare ignored, her hoof tapping against her chin.
You avoided my question earlier. How long have you been harboring these feelings for Rainbow Dash?
Twilight imagined that it couldn't have been long. The outspokenness of her friend wouldn't have allowed the crush to have stayed a secret.
Oh, well,
Rarity muttered, her eyes flickering as she stared at the floor.
not very long at all. Just since the Best Young Flyers competition.
She admitted. Twilight's jaw dropped.
Rarity, that was more than a year ago.
She screamed. Reeling in disbelief, Twilight slowly let herself digest the information. Rarity, on the other hoof, slammed her forelimb on the ground in defiance.
It was not a year ago, Twilight Sparkle.
She defended. Twilight looked up, mildly confused.
It was a mere 11 months, 29 days, and 2 hours ago.
Twilight's face fell, her hoof greening her forehead for the umpteenth time today.
No. Of course that's not a year. Silly me.
Deciding not to press the issue further, Twilight quickly got the idea of what sparked Rarity's interest in Dash.
So, what you're saying is you've been harboring emotions on on our fair blue Pegasus friend after she saved your life.
Rarity's eyes bulged at the suggestion.
Twilight, how dare you make such a claim that I could be so shadow? I'm not some mare to be won over by some daring, selfless, wonderful...
Words trailing, Rarity looked at the floor.
Well, I guess I do make a pretty good damsel.
Twice over. She and Fluttershy had to save you again after Spike's big episode.
Lavender Unicorn looked about for her assistant, being doubly sure it wasn't about to walk in on them having this conversation. Poor guy's heart would break.
Rainbow does have a penchant for always being there for every pony. I can see how that's attractive.
Twilight mused, her hoof reaching towards her chin as she considered Rarity's problem.
Rarity, have you tried talking to Rainbow Dash about this?
Rarity shook her head, bugging off the suggestion.
Certainly not. Why? I don't even know what I'd say. I mean, she's so driven in her training. She might not even really want to consider having a relationship with any pony.
Twilight chuckled, opening her book as her magic flipped through the pages. Whipping sound of paper turning quickly, bringing the white unicorn close to Twilight.
Oh, Rarity, you're not just any pony, though. You're just as driven in your work with your dresses. That's just a different interest.
Pausing, Twilight shot a knowing smile towards her friend.
And if this is any indication, I'd say you've had tons of time to consider dating.
You don't have to put it in such plain terms, Twilight.
Rarity huffed, her eyes catching a page in the guidebook.
Hold on, Twilight. Go back a few pages.
Kicking the red aura into reverse, Rarity's hoof slammed down on a page as Twilight flipped through the book. Gripping the book in her own magic, Rarity lifted it off the desk and started to look through it carefully. Twilight raised an eyebrow as Rarity took off with the book.
Why? What's on that page, Rarity?
A moment's silence followed as Rarity continued to look deep into the book, whereas Twilight took a step forward.
Rarity? Oh, not again.
Horn sparkling, Rarity found herself reading thin air as Twilight plucked the book right out of her grasp, drawing it close as she read it.
What has you so interested in this that you can't...
Twilight trailed, her pupils shrinking.
Can't... Oh my.
Closing the book with a slam, Twilight matched gazes with Rarity.
So I guess that's how wings work in bed.
Deeply informative.
Rarity replied automatically, her voice wouldn't.
Oh, I guess that explains the term wing boner.
Twilight's eyes stared at the ground as her cheeks reddened deeply.
I didn't even consider using them in that fashion.
Rarity closed her eyes as hard as she shook her mane about.
Agree to never speak of this again.
Twilight nodded numbly, her magic quickly tossing the book into the nearby fireplace.
Well, I tell you, Artie, I ain't got no idea what goes on in that pony's head sometime.
Applejack grunted, throwing a hay bale onto a stack several ponies high. Wiping her brow with her forelegs, she warily shrugged as she worked her way past Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie, intent on finishing her chores before midday.
Rarity's always been a bit of a pickle to me, but if you ask me, she's always got something on her mind on something or other. Can't take a moment to relax, that one.
But she goes to the spa and everything. That's relaxing.
Pinkie Pie rebutted, to which Applejack merely bleated back, her mouth filled with rope. These two ponies followed her outside, where she quickly lassoed a large, nearly empty barrel, pulling it alongside her towards the barn. As she placed it along the broad side of the barn, she saw fit to answer Pinkie.
Yeah, but she's always talking about the spa at work and work at the spa.
She countered. As she did, though, Applejack stopped, taking a moment to lean against the barrel, propping herself on her hoof as she considers something new.
Of course, she hasn't been talking a lot about either as of late.
Rainbow Dash stepped forward, her eyes sparkling as she suspected Applejack was onto something.
What's she been saying, AJ? I gotta know.
Applejack's gaze shifted from Rainbow Dash to Pinkie Pie and slight befuddlement.
Well, that's what I'm confused why y'all are asking me. She's been spending her time with Pinkie and Twilight most days, preparing your party. I hear it's gonna be a big one.
Ooh, the biggest party!
Pinkie agreed, throwing a hoof over her friend's back.
There's gonna be cake and ice cream and punch and games like pin the tail on a pony and spin the bottle, and she's gonna get a mix of jams.
Applejack shook her head quickly as she stared at Pinkie Pie. As she opened her mouth to speak, Rainbow Dash took the lead instead.
Whoa, hey, aren't we all a bit old to be playing Spin the Bottle? I haven't played that since I was in flight camp.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Artie, but didn't you go to an all-fillies camp?
The farmer chuckled, neatly dodging a swipe at her hat from the cyan mare.
There was a boys' camp, too.
Rainbow challenged, her face bead red.
Besides, I never got picked on. I never got picked. So, there.
Crossing her forelegs, Applejack just silently chuckled at her friend's expense, prying herself off the barrel and leading the girls to another part of her farm. Pinkie Pie picked up the conversation from where Rainbow left off.
You never got picked? Oh, you poor little filly, sitting there while all the other ponies get their kisses.
Applejack ignored the pity party Pinkie was throwing Dash, instead focusing on the details.
I don't know if I like the idea of playing that game anyway. Some of us ponies have significant others that wouldn't like us partaking in such games.
She added, her mind wandering.
Nor would I like them to be playing neither.
Before Rainbow could interject, Pinkie shook her head.
Oh, you don't have to worry about making kissy faces with any pony, Applejack. You wouldn't even be picked. Rarity said so.
Oh, she said that, did she?
Applejack shot back, her eyes afire.
Now why would she be so sure no pony would want to kiss me? Unless she was taking control of that bow herself. She ain't got no right to be making that kind of assumption.
As the words tumbled out of her mouth, Applejack's speech slowed from righteous anger to dawning realization. Her eyes were focusing on Pinkie.
Pinkie.
She drew out the mare's name long and low.
What exactly did that mare say?
Which mare? There were all three of us, and then there's Fluttershy, Twilight, and Rarity too.
Pinkie continued naming off mares in Ponyville before Rainbow Dash stuck a hoof in her mouth.
She means Rarity, Pinkie.
Dash sighed. The discussion seemed to be going around in circles.
Why? What do you think she's doing, AJ? You got an idea?
Applejack looked straight at Rainbow Dash, her mouth strained against the side of her face.
No, sorry, Rainbow Dash. I ain't that type to go around spreading rumors now.
Shaking her head, the pony whipped her tail about.
Now I got a lot more chores to be doing around here. And I enjoy your company, girls. This ain't the type of stuff my hoes make like work.
Oh, come on, Applejack. You can't get an idea and just leave me hanging.
Rainbow Dash plucked her hoof from Pinkie's mouth, flying up alongside the farmer. Despite repeated attempts, Applejack ignored her pleas for further clarification.
Look, Rainbow, I'm not saying I'm right in what I suspect, but it isn't my place to say.
Applejack paused briefly, looking solemnly at her cyan friend.
I don't suppose you ever tried talking to Rarity, have you?
Dash's wings rose, her hoofs hitting the ground as she shook her head violently.
Talk to Rarity? Hey, no. I barely know what to say to her when we're together. Hey, Rarity, how's the weather? Still doing that dress thing?
Dash's eyes peeled, her voice lowering.
She's like the total opposite of me.
Applejack chuckled.
Yeah, she ain't much like you and me, Dash. But y'all have other, less apparent aspects which you're really akin to. Not to mention, I don't think you're giving her as much credit as she deserves. She's a tough young mare, remember?
Diamond Dog incident aside, every pony got a laugh on how long she had stuck out with Princess Blueblood back at the gala. Still, Applejack's match dashes in tone as she put a hoof on her friend's shoulder.
Now listen, Dash. Rarity's your friend, so don't be scared of speaking up to her. I bet she's got a thing going for you with something special.
Before Dash could react, Applejack brought her close and attacked her friend, Roof digging into Dash's scalp as Applejack gave her a noogie.
Now stop expecting the worst of your friends, you big baby.
Ow! AJ, stop it! Let go, let go, let go!
Dash cried, struggling in vain as Applejack maliciously continued her assault, Pinkie Pie laughing in unison with Applejack as she joined in. Twilight's breath fell easily over the pages of a more abridged version of the Egghead's Guide to Matchmaking, Billy Fool's edition, for prudes. Giving a dissatisfied look over the title, Twilight sighed and brought her hoof down gently as she turned towards her friend. Rarity had been a bit less forthcoming after the incident with the previous version, and had been spending the last hour pacing the same line in her room. Eventually, Twilight had a more hefty sigh, Rarity looking up to meet her gaze.
Well, there isn't much here that doesn't sound completely crazy.
Twilight decided not to mention that additionally. They all sounded likely around Ponyville.
These are all wild scenarios that I'm supposed to force upon you two without your knowledge. And there's nothing for helping out a friend to come together with another one.
Catching the book in a wave of magic, Twilight replaced it on the shelf. Rarity's face fell, her face slowly contorting into self-pity.
I should have known there was nothing a book could tell me about romance.
She tried. Twilight rolled her eyes, trotting forward until she was close to the white unicorn.
Rarity, I don't think you're going about this the right way.
Twilight placed a hoof on her friend's shoulder, giving her a soft, reassuring smile.
Looking for some quick fix to solve your problems that guarantee your preferred outcome isn't going to happen anywhere. A book, a spell, or even a potion.
Sliding a hoof off a friend, Twilight's horn called for another book, straight off the shelves as she brought it to her desk.
But they can help, or even slide things in your favor.
Opening its pages in a flash of magic, Twilight beckoned her friend over as she reminded herself on its passages.
This is a book I read when I was just a little filly. Actually, it was the princess who gave it to me.
Putting a hoof to her lips, Twilight smiled at her memory.
Well, Twilight, that's very sweet of her, but I'm not sure how a Foals book is going to help me in my situation, dearie.
Rarity declined, casting a disapproving shadow over the pages. Twilight's chagrin was plain on her face, but she chose not to pursue it.
It's not really like that, Rarity. This book taught me to be open and honest about my feelings when they were strong.
Twilight's eyes strained over the area where Rarity had paced. She was sure she could see hoof impressions beat it into the wood.
I'd say your feelings are pretty strong.
Rarity's eyes scrolled through the text on the wall, looking for inspiration among the bookends.
Well, Twilight, we do agree on something.
Sighing deeply, Rarity closed her eyes as she looked at the ground.
But, well, strictly speaking, I've never had much trouble in the land of love. Dear, do you have any idea how difficult it is to reject so many advances daily?
It must be tragic.
The studious unicorn's sarcasm seemed to go ignored by her friend, instead taking the opportunity to continue unabated.
The very idea that I could be so really rejected. The horror that might befall my career.
Rarity swooned backwards, while instinctively catching her friend with her magic before she hit the hard floor. Sliding a small pillow under her friend, Twilight released her before approaching with a well-meaning smile. As Rarity gracefully returned to her hooves, Twilight's demeanor changed as she raised Rarity's chin.
Rarity, it may come as a surprise to you, but rejections are a part of social life.
She had no intention to belittle the fashion designer, of course.
I think it's time you just go for it. Throw caution to the wind and try and claim your prize.
Rarity took a step back, her eyes dancing along the floorboards.
Isn't that a bit rough? I'm not exactly the most rough and tumble mare around.
Relenting, Rarity's posture corrected itself back into its more regal disposition, as she considered it.
However,
Rarity's eyes began to sparkle.
I do suppose there's a certain excitement in the straightforward. The direct. Yes, I can see it now. Rainbow Dash is a rugged mare. She's appreciate the sheer dogginess of my proposition. Why, she might be putty in my hooves if I show her what kind of mare I can really be.
Twilight's confidence took a sour turn as Rarity continued. Her smile was plastic as her eyebrows raised.
I'm not sure that's exactly what I meant.
Nonsense, Twilight Sparkle. It's exactly what you said. Throwing caution to the wind.
Rarity's hoof was thrown out in overly dramatic fashion.
I must show Rainbow Dash the very fire of my soul.
Rarity,
Do not wish me luck, my friend. I, Rarity, do not require it.
With all the flair of a cancel-out performer, the mare disappeared out the door. As Twilight went to chase her, she found her discarded assistant right outside the door, with a look of utter bamboozlement on his face.
Twilight?
Spike groaned, his
What
eyes
happened?
spinning and set. Lavender Unicorn looked after the hastily retreating mare in the distance, and sighed through her nose. Throwing on a motherly smile, she quickly hustled back inside.
nothing you need to be worried about.
She lied.
Probably just some new dress idea.
And then what happened?
Sweetie Belle asked, her body leaning forward as she listened to her sister's story. The sticky summer day had kept the two unicorns inside all afternoon, Rarity cooling the air inside every so often with a spell she picked up from Twilight Sparkle. It was much too hot to do any work. The tasks of her early morning's work lay scattered about her boutique. The alabaster pony picked herself up off her pillow, her horns sparkling to life as she made her way to her tea kettle.
You can't just end the story there!
Her young sister pouted.
Oh, Sweetie Belle, I'm not finished with it, but it's such a story. I've had to skip over so much to fit it in the afternoon.
Rarity sighed, knowing with disappointment that her kettle had run cold from overuse of the cooling spell. Placing it back down, the unicorn wheeled about to face her sister as she lit the fire of the stovetop.
It's been 5 hours!
Sweetie Belle said flatly, her hoof pointing towards the window. Her sour expression softened as she continued to stare at her sister.
I don't mind though.
Rarity's eyes flashed over to the window, the evening moonshine filtering in through the curtains, painting patterns of fabulous queens across the floor. A jolt ran through her body as a fashionista, forgetting her tea as she galloped to her room.
Of all the times to be lost in a story.
Rarity called out behind her, leaving the befuddled Sweetie Belle to trot up to the door of her sister's bedroom.
I simply can't believe I've allowed myself to be so unprepared tonight.
Inside, Rarity was tearing through her drawers, scattering clothes and dresses about. The queen peered rummaged through her closet, her magic floating sheets and blankets to her bed, as her hoofs busily shifted through a jewelry box.
Where is it? Where is it?
Sweetie Belle carefully made her way into her sister's room, her magic sparkling just low enough to keep her from her sister's eye, as she helped straighten the bed and placed the old covers into the laundry basket. She tried. her eyes looking about the room.
What are you looking for, sis?
Sweet!
Rarity gasped, voice suddenly hoarse, noticing her sister as if for the very first time, beads of sweat started to appear over her brow.
You're here tonight.
Sweetie felt it was more of a question than a statement. The small unicorn wore an incredulous look.
Oh yeah, you've been telling me a story for the last 5 hours.
Shaking her head, Sweetie Belle waved her hoof about.
But you don't have to worry.
Rarity ignored her sister, instead reeling back in horror at the mess she created.
Oh no, look at this mess. I'll never be able to clean it in time. Oh, this is the worst.
Time for what?
Eyes narrowing on her sister, she shot her the largest smile she could.
Nothing, dear. Absolutely, nothing you need to worry about. Say, Sweetie Belle, why wouldn't you happen to have a sweet tooth right now?
Calling her coin purse over to her, the eldest sister frantically searched for spare bits.
Sweet?
Sweetie Belle echoed.
It's too late to have any candy. You said late night sweet messes with your figure.
Taking a look at her blank flanks and stubby hooves, the filly stared up at her sister.
Not that I really have one right now. Besides, I was gonna say
Rarity smiled sweetly at her sister, fishing out some bits for her to head towards Sugar Cube Corner.
Well, what's life without living a little some nights?
There was a pause before she added.
Some nights, very few, once in a new moon.
Shaking her mane, Rarity felt her poise slipping away. However, as she went to continue her plan, there was a knock at the door. If Rarity's face could go any more white, it would have. Before she could react, Sweetie Belle turned around and headed for the door. Realizing who could be at the door, Rarity's hoof pushed off the ground before her brain could respond, and the man was charging at the door behind her sister. Sweetie could only look on in bewilderment as her sister galloped fast enough to blow her mane in her eyes and slammed the door open.
Rainbow!
Rarity caught herself as she couldn't see any airborne pegasus at the door. Instead, a small purple dragon was standing at the door with a book in hand, staring wide-eyed up at her.
Spike.
Say again?
Spike said, head cocked to the side.
I'm not Rainbow Dash. Oh, did you get gray again?
Peeling his eyes, the dragon looked the unicorn up and down.
I can't tell in the dark here. You still look normal, but you're always so white.
Looking about, Spike seemed to be in search of something.
Do I need to get Twilight to remove Tom again?
As he looked, he caught sight of Sweetie Belle behind Rarity, as she tried to make sense of her sister.
No, Spike. I was just expecting Rainbow Dash.
Rarity admitted. Sweetie Belle waved at Spike, but looked up towards Rarity as she spoke.
Rainbow Dash? Why would she be coming over here? Oh, is it because...
So, Spike!
Rarity interrupted, trying to get her sister over a train of thought.
What brings you here?
She paused.
At night.
Staring down at Spike's hands, she noticed a green-bound book grasped firmly in his claws.
With a book.
She hesitated. Looking back up at the dragon's eyes, her voice piqued his curiosity grow.
Spike, what do you have there?
Oh, it's a dictionary.
Spike informed, raising it up for Rarity to see.
Sweetie Belle and I have started reading some books at the library, but some of them use really big words.
Looking between the two mares, Spike raised an eyebrow.
Am I interrupting anything?
Blinking with a blank visage, Rarity shook her head numbly. Sweetie Belle weaved through the legs of her sister, her horn lightly irritating the coat under Rarity's stomach.
Hey, Spike! Sorry I didn't come over earlier. Rarity was telling me a really romantic story.
Spike's immediate reaction was to stick out his tongue, but with his lady present, her kept this serpentine appendage to himself. Besides, Sweetie Belle seemed to be fluttering her eyes, which distracted the baby dragon momentarily. Rarity's mind clicked into overdrive.
Sweetie?
She wailed, throwing a hoof over her forehead, and she collapsed backwards onto her pillow.
How could you leave such a gentleman as Spike waiting for untold hours?
Opening one eye to watch the reaction of the two children, Rarity continued.
No, this simply won't do.
Flipping to her hoofs, the unicorn shook her head.
Sweetie, I demand you go with Spike this instant.
What?
Sweetie Belle began. She was cut off.
No, no. My lady always keeps her word. Spike, see to it that you finish whatever stories you've started with utmost clarity and diction.
Rarity demanded. Spike saluting the order on impulse. A coy smile played on her lips as she started to shoo her sister out of her boutique.
I do not want to see either of you here until morning. Now go on.
With one last push of her hoofs, both Sweetie Belle and Spike were removed from the premises, the door slamming shut behind them. Dumbfounded, the two exchanged bemused glances.
So...
Spike started, claw tapping the hard cover of the dictionary. The pitter-pat filled the silence outside as he searched for the right words.
I guess it's okay for you to stay the night then.
Sweetie Belle nodded.
Rarity knew nothing about it beforehand?
Sweetie Belle's ears twitched at the odd-sounding wordage the dragon used, but dismissed it as she recalled reading the word once before. But she nodded all the same.
I was trying to tell her.
Sweetie mumbled, her eyes training on the door.
But she suddenly got into this huge panic. Her story was so sweet, though. Maybe I can try and tell you later, Spike.
Spike shrugged, his head turning away.
I'm not into that mushy stuff. I can't imagine it's all that important to me.
Letting her hair fall loose around her shoulders, the fashionista sighed. Under normal circumstances, she would have never let Sweetie Belle out for the night. But tonight was special. Spinning from the door, the prospect of what she had planned for tonight seeped into her step, giving her a slight spring as she let loose an uncharacteristic giggle.
That was a neat trick with your sister, Rarity.
The alabaster pony's blood froze like ice in her veins, and she came mere centimeters away from Rainbow Dash. Framed in the doorway opposite her, a flood of rainbow played against her horn. A sky blue smirk mere inches away from her own parted lips. Without much more than a blink of those gorgeous rose eyes, Rare was swept into a passionate kiss. Instinctively, Rarity lifted herself up on her hind legs, her forelimbs finding themselves somewhere on the Pegasus' chest. As time wore on, the two ponies slipped into an embrace. Reluctantly drumming to her hoofs, the unicorn broke her kiss, the lips settling on a pout, despite her best intentions. Rainbow Dash smiled as she stepped away, her eyes praying over the scattered boutique.
How did you get in?
Rarity thought. She heard herself say. She wasn't really paying attention. Dash's infuriatingly constant, unendingly alluring smirk teased her as Pegasus looked about her bedroom.
I flew.
Dancing on her hoofs, Dash busied herself by picking up some loose fabric off the ground, the mare smiling down at it.
Huh. Busy day today?
Yes.
Rarity began. She could smell the sweat of her mare, a slightly sick and subtle intoxicating scent of work mixed with unending pleasure.
You've been practicing hard, Rainbow Dash?
The Pegasus looked back momentarily, sticking out a wing and giving it a whiff and a sheepish smile.
Guess I should have found a cloud to run through before I got here.
The exhaustion in her voice didn't go unnoticed. Rarity noticed a slight heave in Dash's chest, the Pegasus still trying to catch her breath after the flight. Rainbow's hooves were trembling as Rarity drew closer.
It's a long way from Canterlot. Longer than I give it credit for sometimes. Nothing I can't handle.
White Pony silently cantered over to the Pegasus, nuzzling her compatriot softly. Pressing herself against Rainbow, the unicorn supported some of her weight.
Come on, Rainbow Dash. Let's get you to bed.
Reluctant stayed the hooves of the flyer.
I'm fine, Rarity. I just need a minute.
However, much she tried. However, the gentle push of her friend led her to the bed.
I'm here now, Rarity. We don't have much time before I have to go back. And I can't waste sleeping.
My, Rainbow Dash. How the Wonderbolts have changed you.
Rarity teased, her one calling over a pillow for Rainbow.
I remember a time when you'd give up everything for a nap.
Climbing into her bed after Dash, Rarity laid next to her, nuzzling against the pony, who flashed a reluctant smile.
Don't worry about a thing, Rainbow Dash. I'm just content with you being here tonight.
The Pegasus' eyes flickered, gently closing as her breathing slowly became more rhythmic. Rarity smiled through misty eyes, taking in the rare side of the Pegasus at her side. It felt so right to have her here, at night, with nothing and no pony else.
Dash?
She breathed.
Rarity?
The Pegasus murmured back to her. Rarity had expected Dash to be asleep by now, muttering apologies for keeping her awake.
It's fine. I don't want to go to sleep just yet.
Her voice betrayed her context. Rarity took it as at face value, taking the opportunity to get more comfortable against the Pegasus. She was warm, hot even, for a flight from Cancelot.
You were telling Sweetie about us?
Rarity turned her head, the half-moon roses staring at her with mirth. Gently, Rarity smiled.
I think she's old enough to know when her sister dates some pony.
Rarity cooed, her chin coming to rest on a pillow. The Pegasus rolled deliberately to her side, exposing her belly to Rarity as she brought the unicorn close. Placing her forehead against Rarity's own, that Rainbow closed her eyes.
Did you get to the part where you asked about me?
There was a large grin on Rainbow's face, playing with Rarity's emotions.
I was just getting there when I noticed the time.
Dash giggled despite herself, her eyes opening to take in Rarity's own sapphire gems.
Tell me.
Dash breathed, closing her eyes. Pegasus wore a content smile.
What?
Dash nestled deeper into the pillow, never leaving the closeness she felt against the unicorn.
Tell me how we started this.
Taking a deep breath, the unicorn couldn't hide her deep blush, and thanked Luna's stars the Pegasus for keeping her eyes closed.
Well, I had left Twilight's library when I saw you coming down the road.
Uh-huh.
Your mane was all tousled, an absolute mess. You said Pinkie and Applejack were to blame. And then I was struck with a terrible case of stage fright. So, things are well then?
Rarity choked out, her heart deciding to settle down in her throat. The alabaster unicorn was thankful for her white coat. It helped hide the paleness in her face as she stood on pins and needles.
Still flying around performing dazzling stunts for all of Ponyville to see?
Yeah, I guess.
Dash countered, her gaze never really falling on Rarity's.
So, hey, Rares, I got a question or two to ask you.
Watching the grass grow in front of her hooves, Dash's head rolled up towards the sky as she searched for answers.
Well, Rainbow Dash, I've always got time for a few questions from friends. Fire away.
Eyes starting about, the devil-may care fire that had raged in her heart mere minutes ago had cooled and sunk into ice-cold blocks round her feet. Strictly speaking, she was feeling rather unfabulous. Clearing her throat, the Pegasus brought her stares to the general area around Rarity.
So, I was kind of wondering, with me going to the Wonderbolts here soon and all, and you've been really pressing the deal of a party and stuff for me.
Rarity could feel her tongue start to dry as Dash continued.
And that's been really cool and all, but don't you think it's a bit, I don't know, overboard?
The pit in the white pony's stomach widened into a chasm as Dash went on. There was no way this could succeed. Rarity was playing with fire and she could feel it starting to burn and nib at her.
But why? Whatever do you mean, Dash? I'm trying to give you the best.
She choked back a tear, swallowing hard to dismiss her feelings.
Best time in Ponyville before you leave.
Dash was looking at her now, her face vacant as she tried to figure her friend out. The smile she wore was painful just to look at.
Yeah, but, I mean, you went parties. I've never seen you take so much effort into planning something that didn't deal with dresses or 17 different outfits.
Rarity allowed herself a laugh. It was a hoarse and painful coming up, sparkling a tear alongside her eye.
Well, there are just some things you don't know about ponies, Rainbow Dash.
Her eyes shut hard, shaking her head. She was supposed to be fiery and direct.
I'm certain more than a dressmaker, you know.
I know that, Rarity.
Dash said, her eyes tracking the clouds in the sky.
At least, I think I do. Applejack was saying that about you.
Her eyes landed, her hoof pushing a strand of indigo hair to the side.
But I don't understand, Rarity. Nobody else is all that worked up about it.
They're not in love.
Rarity choked, her tears burning the sides of her face. Dash doubled back, taking a few steps back from the mare in surprise.
I mean, they don't like you the way.
Rarity?
Dash breathed, her expression absolutely befuddled.
Me?
The pained smile looked back at her, lines of mascara staining the cheeks of the ivory mare.
Of course you, Dash.
Taking a step forward, Rarity felt her gaze wanting to be anywhere but where it landed.
You're strong, independent, wonderfully talented.
Rarity tried to stop her verbal cascade, but her mouth ran off without her.
Beautiful. Rainbow Dash, you're everything I've ever felt I've needed, and I'm so sorry I am putting this on you.
Rarity was shaking, a few tears dropping from her eyes.
I couldn't bear to let you go to Canterlot without showing you somehow how I felt.
Loud sniff escaped from the unicorn as she stared at the ground, a struggling laugh escaping her.
Not at all how I pictured it in my mind. I've gone and ruined it.
She felt selfish, her heart like ash. Rainbow Dash was silent, her head turning away from Rarity. The unicorn looked up at the Pegasus, but seeing no response, she let her head dip.
I am sorry. I should probably just go tell Pinkie she can run the party without me.
Dash never met her gaze, instead numbly nodding her head.
Yeah. That's gonna be for the best. I think.
Her voice was slow, letting tears run freely from Rarity's eyes. Turning about, Rarity started to head to her boutique.
Stupid, stupid, stupid.
She hissed between broken sobs.
You think that just admitting your feelings will just make them appear in some other mare?
Her tears splashed against the ground as she felt her legs want to gallop away, but let her hooves stayed her feet to nothing more than a sorrowful saunter.
That she might... Oh, Rarity, what were you thinking?
Rarity?
The voice came from above her. Looking up, the sky blue pegasus was giving her a comforting smirk.
I don't think I can make the party either. I've got a date with a pretty young unicorn.
Dash?
Landing beside her, the pegasus made to wipe the tears from Rarity's face, but ended up smudging the mascara something awful.
Oops.
Pinning a black tip hoof on the ground, the pegasus smiled.
I didn't expect this, Rarity. Not from you, but I've got some time left in Ponyville.
Stepping closer to Rarity, the pegasus smirked.
If you want to try this, I'm game for a little fun.
Rarity's eyes bulged, looking over Rainbow Dash.
You...
New tears emerged, the unicorn smiling hugely.
Dash, I could kiss you.
Well,
Rainbow breathed, leaning close to the unicorn.
why not?
Rarity hardly had time to swoon as Pegasus swooped over and stole a kiss. Twilight was right. Straightforward and direct did have its pleasures. Dash snored softly into the pillow as Rarity finished her recollection, Pony uncaring that the Pegasus had fallen asleep. Kissing her forehead gently, the mare smiled.
Sweet dreams, Dash.
Her eyes trailed to the clock on the wall. The black cat with darting eyes, its tail counted off the seconds of the day. Opal hated that clock, she was sure. But the unicorn watched the seconds, minutes, hours tick by, holding her Dash for every moment she could. They would have to stop this soon. Dash couldn't keep flying out from Canterlot to see her. The Wonderbolts training was only going to get more and more intense, and soon she wouldn't have the power to even make the flight out to Ponyville, let alone be with her. No, this was just not meant to be. But they didn't care. Looking back at the sleeping Rainbow, Rarity closed her eyes in a content smile. All of that worry and sadness wasn't for them. She had her mare, and the time they had now was what was truly important. The end.
Hey guys, I gotta go. Dinner's ready. All right, bye.